Imagine this. The lights flicker once, twice, then die. The building groans like a wounded animal. You're 37 floors up when the elevator you stepped into 10 seconds ago jerks to a dead stop between floors. Your stomach drops harder than the car itself. For the first 30 seconds you're annoyed, maybe even laugh it off. By the second-minute mark, you're pressing the alarm button like it owes you money. And somewhere around the 5-minute mark, when the air already feels thicker and the walls feel closer, a cold little voice in your head whispers the truth nobody ever says out loud. You just walked into one of the most efficient predator traps modern civilization ever built. Becca, you use elevators aren't transportation. In a real emergency, blackout, earthquake, fire, terror attack, grid collapse, they instantly transform into vertical coffins that double as baited cages. And the predators aren't always human. Let's start with the part that should terrify you the most. The moment the power dies, you're not just trapped, you're advertised. Every elevator car has an emergency light that kicks in on battery the instant grid power fails. That soft white glow leaking through the crack beneath the doors, that's a dinner bell. In a darkened stairwell lit only by panicked phone screens, that thin blade of steady light screams, "Fresh meat in here," to anyone desperate enough to start hunting. Looters, gangs, or just people who've decided civilization took the day off, they all see the same thing: a sealed metal box with no escape route, no weapons, and at least one warm body inside. You. But the humans are only the second worst problem. The real killer is simpler and far less forgiving. Physics doesn't care about your building's 5-star safety rating. When the grid goes down for more than a few minutes, the backup batteries that keep the brakes engaged start bleeding power. Elevator brakes are normally fail-safe, meaning they're held open by electromagnets. Lose power and massive springs slam the brakes shut to stop the car from free-falling. That's great if you're between floors and stationary. What nobody tells you is that those same batteries also power the door motor, the intercom, the ventilation fan, and that pretty emergency light. Give it 45 minutes to an hour in a dead building, and the batteries sag. The brakes stay clamped, but everything else starts dying in order of priority. First, the fan goes quiet. Then the light dims to a sullen amber. Then the intercom clicks off forever. And you, my friend, are now sealed in a 6x6 steel box with no moving air and rising CO2. Here's what nobody tells you in those cute little "in case of emergency" posters. The average elevator car is designed to hold 12 to 20 people for a few minutes, not one person for hours. Ventilation is an afterthought. Once that fan dies, the only fresh air comes from microscopic gaps around the doors. Gaps measured in millimeters. Your own breathing turns the car into a slow cooker. Every exhale pumps out carbon dioxide and water vapor. Within an hour, the humidity climbs past 90%. Your eyeballs feel like they're floating. By hour 2, your blood CO2 starts climbing into the danger zone. Headache, confusion, panic, blackout. And the entire time the temperature is rising 1 degree every 10 minutes from your own body heat alone. I've talked to firefighters who've pried open cars after 6 hours in summer blackouts. They describe it the same way: opening a sardine tin full of unconscious meat at 110 degrees. But let's say you're tougher than that. Let's say you stay calm. You still have to deal with the fact that you're dangling on cables that are now unmonitored. Modern traction elevators don't have the giant counterweights you picture. They use thin, high-tensile steel ropes coated in grease. In normal operation, those ropes are constantly lubricated by a little pump. Lose power, and the pump stops. The ropes start drying. Friction climbs. Heat builds in the sheaves at the top. In prolonged blackouts, maintenance crews have found ropes that glazed over and snapped days later when power was restored and someone innocently pressed to the call button. The car didn't fall while you were inside it. It waited until you thought you were safe, then dropped 30 floors like a guillotine. So what do you actually do the moment the car stops and the lights flicker? First, never override the doors on a dead elevator unless the car is perfectly level with the floor and the building is on fire behind you. The gap between the car floor and the landing sill can be anywhere from a few inches to 4 feet. People who panic pry the doors and crawl out routinely lose fingers, arms, or their lives when the car shifts a few inches and turns that gap into a 2,000-pound shear. Second, kill the emergency stop switch immediately. Yes, the big red mushroom button. In 90% of elevators, pulling it does not stop anything dangerous. It simply disables the controller so the car cannot be called away from your floor by someone else or by an automatic recall system. Leave it running, and a distant backup generator kicking in could yank your car away while you're halfway out the hatch, turning you into the world's most expensive pizza topping. Third, get on the floor, not for dramatic effect, for thermodynamics. Heat rises. The coolest air, the air with the lowest CO2, pools in the bottom 6 inches. Lie flat, face near the door crack. Breathe slow and shallow. You can buy yourself hours that way. Fourth, start stripping. I'm not joke king, but only barely. Every layer of clothing is insulation trapping your body heat inside the car with you. In prolonged entrapment, documented cases show people cooked to death wearing winter coats in 80-degree cars because they were too modest or too panicked to take them off. Get down to the minimum. Use the clothes to block the emergency light if it's still on. Total darkness is better than that hypnotic glow telling every predator on the floor exactly where you are. Fifth, make noise, but make it smart. Screaming until you're hoarse just spikes your CO2 production. Instead, bang on the walls in patterns of 3, pause, 3 again. Rescue crews listen for that. Random screaming blend S with alarms and collapsing drywall. Patterned noise cuts through chaos like a blade. Sixth, if you have any metal on you, belt buckle, keys, a pen, start scoring the walls near the door. Not to dig out, that's Hollywood nonsense, but to leave a trail. When they finally pry the hoistway doors on that floor, they'll see fresh gouges and know someone's alive in the shaft. Firefighters have found people weeks later because of those marks. And seventh, the darkest trick nobody wants to talk about. If you're trapped with strangers and the air is going bad fast, you have to decide who stays conscious longest. Because the moment the first person passes out, their body weight shifts, the car tilts microscopically, and that can be enough to unstick old brakes. Real case, Chicago, 2019. Blackout. 4 people trapped. 1 guy in the corner blacks out, slumps, car lurches 2 inches down, brakes release, counterweight yanks the whole thing up the shaft like a slingshot and slams it into the overhead. Only the 1 guy who stayed awake and wedged himself in the opposite corner survived because he rode the floor instead of the ceiling when it inverted. Cruel physics. The bitter punchline? Most elevator entrapment deaths aren't from falling. They're from suffocation, dehydration, or being crushed when someone on another floor finally forces the system to move again days later. The car becomes a forgotten lunchbox until the smell gets bad enough that maintenance investigates. So next time you step into an elevator during a storm, during protests, during anything that could knock the grid out, pause for 1 second and ask yourself, if the lights die right now, am I ready to spend the next 1 to 72 hours in a box specifically designed to kill me slowly while broadcasting my location to anything hungry on the other side of the doors? Because the elevator doesn't care that you had a meeting on the 42nd floor. Once the power fails, it's just a hanging trap, and you, my friend, are the bait. Stay out of the box when the world starts growling. And if you absolutely have to ride, keep your shoes tied tight, your knife accessible, and your lungs disciplined. Because the moment those doors close and the floor drops away, the countdown isn't on the display panel anymore. It's on you.